All right, so going off of our to-do list, let's create our first app for videos. Let's go ahead and do python manage.py, start app, and videos. Really simple, not really that hard to do. Okay, so this looks like I have 4 models almost, but really it's 2. It's the video itself and then playlists. So let's go ahead and start out with just videos. So let's go ahead and jump into models.py, and I'll do class video, and it's models.model. Now, what are the things that are describing a video? Well, first of all, let's go ahead and say title is definitely in there. Description is probably in there. Slug, we could probably use that, and I'll explain that in a moment. The actual video ID itself, not the model ID, but the actual video embed ID. So we could call it video embed ID or just simply video ID. What else we could do is probably knowing when this actually happened. So like a timestamp and maybe an updated field and maybe even published, whether or not it's been published. So like, let's call this a state. So if it's been published or not. Okay, cool. So we've got a few different options here on how we can actually decide this video. But there's a couple things that I'm not going to do just yet. We'll do that in the future, but state and then maybe like the publish timestamp. Both of those things we'll probably save for later. Maybe even timestamp and updated we can save as well, because I might actually want to rethink how this is done, because maybe I want timestamp, update, state, and published in other places. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just do title, description, slug, and video ID. Now, right off the bat, this is how I usually design my models. I think about all of the things that I might want, and I lay out the field names right there. Now, title, description, and slug are very common across your models. So I will say that just in general, if you're going to call it title, somewhere else don't call it name, right? So if you make a playlist, don't call it playlist name, call it playlist title. Kind of keep those things as consistent as you possibly can. So now what we want to do is actually declare what those fields are. So let's go ahead and look up Django Django model and fields, so we can see the various fields. Now, this is fairly obvious to me, and maybe it will be to you as well. But the first one, the title field, needs to be some sort of text field. So if we look on the right-hand side, we can see all the field options. Now, I already know that it should be the character field, but you might default to being like, oh, it should be the text field, right? Because it's going to be text. It's going to have like letters and numbers. It's going to have all sorts of text-related things. So we go in here and we see that it's a large text field. That's why we don't use text fields, is because we don't need a large text field. Instead, we need a small one, which is why it's going to be a char field. So models.char field. And next, description. Hey, this could actually be pretty large. So let's go ahead and use text field for that one. Slug, there's a specific field called slug field, which essentially just means this is my video, and it's going to be based off of the title itself. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and allow it to be blank equals to true and null equals to true. Okay, cool. So the slug field might be something we want to worry about later, but for now, I'm going to leave it in as this. Next is going to be our video ID. I'm going to go ahead and add in our character field for that. Simple enough so far. Now that we've got this, let's go ahead and actually run our first migrations.